Hello and welcome. Here we talk about movies, and today we're talking about Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire. It's a fantasy action-adventure film that continues the MonsterVerse saga. In this iteration, Kong and Godzilla must team up to take on a threat from an unexplored part of Hollow Earth. Adam Wingard, Simon Barrett, and Terry Rossio wrote the story, and then Jeremy Slater, Wingard, and Barrett adapted it into a screenplay. Adam Wingard directed the film, which stars Rebecca Hall, Brian Tyree Henry, and Dan Stevens. Okay, positives first. This movie knows what it's about. Giant monsters fighting and destroying things, and it puts that part of itself front and center, and heavily focuses on it. You not only have Kong and Godzilla, but you also get to see Mothra, an ice Godzilla called Shimo, a dragon called Tiamat, and an army of giant apes. They clash across the entire planet and destroy huge swaths of cityscape, landscape, and human life. Their battles are viewed through wide-angle shots of them towering over the lands, and we get a lot of beautiful scenery to go along with it. Golden deserts, bountiful forests, and lands untouched by human machinery. On top of that, their battles aren't just hand-to-hand slugfests. The Titans move and fight like gladiators in an arena. Kong uses his axe and does all kinds of flips, spins, and jumping specials, while Godzilla blasts out of trouble. The fights use a lot of special effects on top of the standard monster beatdown, and they make for incredibly flashy, high-octane sequences. They're supported by a solid but slightly generic soundtrack, too. It's made from scored orchestral fantasy music that follows the story and adds a bit of emotion to the scenery. It's good at hyping up the battle scenes, making the Scar King and his domain feel scary, and it adds a good bit of wonder and mystery when the camera is panning over Hollow Earth. The cast isn't doing a bad job either. There are quite a few competent actors here asked to play basic stereotypes, and all of them rise to the challenge. Brian Tyree Henry and Dan Stevens act as comedic relief and manage to get a few chuckles. Kaylee Hoddle and Rebecca Hall act out a minor emotional journey relating to their mother-daughter relationship and do a good job of that as well. They aren't allowed to explore the emotions in any real depth, but we do get a few nice moments from each of them. Alright, now let's talk about the problems. The story doesn't make sense and relies on bad writing tropes like Deus Ex Machina to survive. It is a fantasy story, but the liberties they take are just lazy and boring. Like at one point, Kong gets badly injured and they have no way to fix it. So they just pull out a magic healing gauntlet, which just so happens to be exactly where they need it to be. Oh, and it also upgrades his strength and deals with one of the villain's main strengths by resisting cold. The story is filled with garbage like this, and it doesn't do anything else well either. There are too many characters, so none of them get a character arc. There are no stakes because you never feel like Kong and Godzilla could actually lose. And 75% of the dialogue is people exposition dumping the story. It's boring. Things just happen without any setup, and the only real reason to continue watching is to watch big monsters beat each other up. Even that gets tiresome, as there isn't a back-and-forth struggle in the battles. Kong and Godzilla just win overwhelmingly until the story needs them to lose. The cast is given almost nothing to do. You have competent actors here who could be telling real stories. Instead, they're telling basic jokes and vomiting up dialogue that no one cares to hear, until the third act when they all cease to exist. They're just there on screen. I guess to remind you that someone could die if Kong and Godzilla lose? In the end, Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire is the kind of film you only go to see for the visual effects. They're not the greatest in the world, but if you like CGI monsters fighting, this was meant for you. It's not doing anything new or exciting, there's nothing of real value being added to the franchise, but there are some fun moments. Personally, I don't understand why they even keep trying to do human characters. They clearly wanted to do a story with Kong as an actual character, but instead they spent the majority of the screen time with humans who had nothing to do. They should also animate these films entirely. There is so much CGI in it that they might as well just make it a cartoon. It would free them up from having to do human characters, they could add facial expressions to the monsters to make them talk, and they could do way cooler action sequences. I'm just saying. As for a rating, I'd give this film a 4 out of 10. Remember, these are just my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye-bye.